knows how to play a musical instrument or has ever played a musical instrument? Okay, who here has a favorite musical genre or a favorite artist? So that's essentially all of us, right? So you could say that music is actually a human universal. Well, our friend, poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, seems to agree. He thinks that music is the universal language of mankind. So it's pretty difficult for us to not run into music, at least some point in our lives. But have you ever considered when you're listening to your favorite song, humming your favorite tune, or perhaps playing the piano, what effect this has on your brain? Probably not. So today I'm going to discuss how music impacts brain health, mood, and memory. So initially, music impacts brain health, and this is by impacting your brain plasticity. So your brain plasticity basically is the way that your brain reshapes and remolds itself in response to stimuli. So one way in which this is done is by activating the primary motor cortex. And Chelsea Gordon and associates in the study Recruitment of the Motor System During Music Listening, published in 2018 in the National Library of Medicine, created basically a study where they surveyed 386 people. They asked them to listen to music passively while completing tasks. And this resulted in a positive association between activity in the primary motor cortex, which, as you can see, is located between the parietal lobe and the frontal lobe when listening to music and completing tasks such as humming. And this is important to note because this shows how the brain is essentially able to mold its responses based off this auditory stimuli that's being heard. In this study, they also noted that the cerebellum, which is this tiny structure right here, it's at the back base of your brain, that it's responsible for complex movements. They also noted that there's cerebellum action when predicting these musical elements that they were asked to find. And so this just once again goes to show how the cerebellum and the primary motor cortex are working together to help remold your brain plasticity in response to the stimuli when listening to music. So in addition to this, music also impacts your brain health by increasing the gray matter that's in your brain. So according to Dr. Catherine Gordon, who is a researcher at Global Brain Health Institute in Dublin, Ireland, this was studied in 2002 by her that the cluster of neurons in the brain and the spinal cord is essentially gray matter. And gray matter is really important because it's involved in our perceptions as well as our movements. So it's basically essential for our human function. So she noticed that in her study that there is a growth of the corpus callosum, which is this blue banded area right here. It's a bundle of nerve networks that essentially connects your left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain together. So she noticed that this grows larger when you're listening to music, as well as actually even probably more importantly playing music. So through this, she saw that when this corpus callosum grows larger, that there's faster neuron firing in between both of the hemispheres, which actually results in increased motor responses in people. And in addition to this, gray matter is also enhanced in Fischl's gyrus, and it's located in the auditory cortex of the brain, so it's responsible for processing auditory signals. And Dr. Peter Schneider, who is the lead researcher at Heidelberg University in Germany, said in 2018 that professional musicians have a 102% increase in gray brain matter in this region of the brain compared to non-musicians, and that there's a 37% increase of this gray matter in this region of the brain in amateur or professional musicians compared to non-musicians. So this just goes to show how when you are exposed to music and when you're learning how to play instruments essentially from a younger age up into adulthood, that gray matter in areas of the brain that you probably didn't even know existed is increasing. So in addition to impacting brain health, music can also impact mood, and this is done by increasing your emotional arousal. And your emotional arousal is essentially the feelings that you get when you're responding to stimuli. So one of the ways that this is done is by activating the sympathetic nervous system, which controls your fight or flight responses, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. So there was a study done by Valerie Salencourt and associates entitled "The Rewarding Aspects of Music Listening Are Related to a Degree of Emotional Arousal" in the year 2009. and it's published in the National Library of Medicine. And in this study, they basically analyzed the chill response, which is a sympathetic nervous system response, and when it comes to listening to music. So they thought that when you have an increased peak in your chill responses, that measurements such as your temperature, your heart rate, and your blood pressure will increase because you're listening to pleasurable music. And so they found that this correlation is actually true. And as you can see from these peaks here, that demonstrates how the sympathetic nervous system is responding when listening to pleasurable music. And in addition to this, they also discovered that your dopamine levels, which is a happy hormone that's in your brain, it's basically your reward system, which is located in the limbic system of the brain, also increase. And this is because there's increased blood flow into the limbic system of the brain. So dopamine in these peaks will rise, which also correlates to your pleasure levels. So in general, music can increase your emotional arousal when you're listening to it and playing it, because you're having these quick hormonal changes in your body. So in addition to this, music also provides stress relief for individuals. And this is due to decreased physiological arousal, which is chemical changes in your body that result from basically negative stressors. And there was a study done by DeWitt and Associates that entitled Effects of Music Interventions on Stress-Related Outcomes in the year 2019. And it was published in the Health Psychology Review. And it basically entailed participants having to listen to music when they were in stressful situations or negative situations. And then this music was seen as a positive stressor instead of a negative stressor. So they saw there was a correlation between decreases in physiological arousal like fast heart rate or increased blood pressure and listening to music. And in addition to this, they also noticed that there was action in the amygdala, which is this region in the limbic system of the brain. And it releases endorphins that help to calm the body in situations of stress. So that's why when you listen to music, you can experience stress relief because you're introducing a positive stressor to your body that in turn helps you just to feel better and can even change your mood. So not only does music impact brain health and mood, but it also helps to impact your memory. And one specific instance of this would be your working memory. So your working memory is defined as just your short-term memory. And some examples that I came up with would be doing a long division problem, recalling a newly learned name, or remembering a set of directions to immediately complete a task. And there is seen to be a correlation between your working memory as well as comprehension. So researchers Janina Lehman and Tina Seufert in a 2017 study from the journal Frontiers in Psychology gave headphones to different participants, and they asked them to listen to background music. And they were giving them basically just commands and instructions and tasks and things to do. And then when they finished the study, they were asked to recall information as well as answer comprehension questions. So they noticed that those who were listening to background music actually had lower comprehension levels, as you can see, compared to those who did not have background music, who had higher comprehension levels. This goes to show how listening to background music may prove to be a hindrance to some people instead of when you would think, oh, maybe this would actually help me. However, they also noted that those who have a higher working memory capacity, short-term memory, actually could be helped with listening to background music when recalling information and with their comprehension, compared to others who have maybe a less capacity of working memory. So this just goes to show you that some people may be hindered by listening to background music, while others who maybe have certain strengths when it comes to memory can actually be helped when listening to background music. So lastly, your long-term memory retention can be impacted by listening to music. And your long-term memory also includes your procedural memory, which is memory to do tasks. And some examples of this would be remembering significant dates, just general memories, happy memories, sad, whatever, or tying your shoes. So your procedural memory can be aided, and Dr. Ronald DeVere, who's the director of Alzheimer's disease and memory disorders in Austin, Texas, he published an article, Music and Dementia Overview, where he conducted a study on Alzheimer's patients, and he found that musicians who had Alzheimer's disease could actually learn how to play the piano once again and they could remember the skills that they had before, their procedural memory, learn how to play the piano, learn how to play tunes that they knew before, and learn how to play new tunes. And this lasted, they retained these skills for 8 weeks or longer, so that just shows their long-term memory is aided by this music therapy. And in addition to this, it was discovered that music can also serve as a verbal memory aid. So a verbal memory aid is something like, instead of me telling you my instructions, I can sing them to you instead, so it helps to stick into your brain better. So when musicians were, or when Alzheimer's disease patients were summed to in music therapy, instead of just basically told information or being in regular therapy, they actually were able to remember information such as friends' names, family names, and street addresses, which is crazy. And they were also, when they chose familiar music to listen to for themselves, they could remember even more information like recipes. So this once again goes to show how your long-term memory can be aided by listening to music, because they're able to make these connections with their emotions and with things that they had done in the past with their procedural memory, and they're actually able to remember things that they may have lost before. So to conclude, how exactly does music impact the brain? Well, it has health impacts, mood impacts, and memory impacts. And music, as we learned, is a human universal. So the next time that you guys are engaging with music in any capacity, I really encourage you to think about the ways in which music is impacting your brain that you may have never even considered before, but learned from this presentation. Thank you.